Scott's gonna run through this meeting real fast.
Good evening. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the South Haven City Council for Monday, October the 19th, 2020. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We can begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just in time. Roll call. Travis.
Jeff Arnold.
Here.
Chris Campbell.
Here.
Joe Reeser.
Here.
Steve Schlack.
Here.
George Sleeper. Letitia Wilkins.
Here.
Scott Smith.
Here. Can I have a motion to excuse George?
I'll make a motion to excuse George Sleeper.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, to excuse Mr. George Sleeper. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
He is excused. Thank you. Next, we have the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It's approved. Do we have Gail on the phone? Miss Gail Patterson Gladney, our county commissioner.
Gail, you're on with the city council. Gail,
Can you hear me?
yep.
Good evening,
hello.
Gail.
This is Gail Patterson Gladney, and I'm Van Buren County Commissioner for District 1, and I have items I wanted to share with you, and thank you for your time that you give me to share news from the county. First of all, Equalization Services. Commissioners approved a 5-year contract with Tony Meyer from Assessing Solutions for Equalization Services for the county. And the first payment is $182,400 and will be adjusted each year by the change in the cost of living index. Then our county master plan, the commissioners approved a revised master plan for the county. And this plan was revised by the County Planning Commission, and they recommended its approval to the board. The Van Buren liquor tax is collected on liquor sales in Van Buren County, and it's projected to be $150,000. 50% of these funds must be used for substance abuse prevention and treatment programs in our county. I just wanted to make sure that the city had received the up-to-date information about the county food giveaway that's coming October 21st. I did send a flyer, and I just wanted to know if you received that so that you could share it. It's going to be October 21st, 5 to 7:30 p.m. I know Councilwoman Wilkins had been interested before in sharing that with some of her constituents, and others may want to do that also. Was that received by the city?
It was.
Oh, good. Okay. And the food giveaways, they are put on by Southwest Michigan Community Action Agency. They try to do one a month, and they were able to team up with local farmers so that they could also have fresh fruits and vegetables for those who come to the food pickup. They are now behind in packing and are asking for people to help with more than 2,000 senior boxes and another 4,000 family boxes that they give away each month. So if any people in the community want to volunteer, any group, they can contact Kim Odom or Yvonne Vitt at 269-925-9077, and that's Southwest Michigan Community Action Agency. And they have been very busy, especially during this time with COVID. and we are very thankful for all that they do for our community. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? I don't see any, Gail. Thank you for the call.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for your time again.
You
Goodbye.
too. Thank you. That takes us to the consent agenda, items A through G.
I'll make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through G.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Arnold,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Reeser,
Yes.
Schlack,
Yes.
Wilkins,
Yes.
Smith.
Yes. That takes us to new business, and if the group is interested, I would suggest we take A, B, and C, and we can just do them as one motion. City Council will be asked to consider approval of cafe licenses, cafe license agreements for outdoor dining and alcohol services for the following businesses. The first is Taste at 402 Phoenix Street. The second is the Black River Tavern at 403 Phoenix Street. And the third is the New Holland Brewing Company, LLC, at 253 Center Street.
I'll make a motion to approve the cafe license agreements for outdoor dining and alcohol services as stated at the three businesses listed.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. And just a reminder, for public comment on all items tonight, the number is 637-0777. That will be occurring at the end here, once we get done hearing from our city manager. So, Ms. Kate Hosier, could you fill us in on what these are about?
Absolutely, Mayor. These are cafe license agreements that have been, at least for two of the businesses, these would be renewals. Taste and Black River Tavern have been using these for a number of years. New Holland Brewery has just been recently approved for a special land use. That follows with Taste and Black River Tavern also getting a land use. These agreements are substantially similar to the ones that we've used in the past. We've really only changed one or two items, which is the fees that would be the license fee itself for Black River Tavern and Taste. Those are kind of stepping up as they go down for the number of years. And we've also made these a running like a year after year. So they would renew automatically after 1 year unless, we were displeased or they were displeased. So that term is the only new thing. Everything else is the same.
Very good.
And the auto renewal would also apply to New Holland?
Yes, it would.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Do we have any public call-ins, any public comments?
I'll check.
No comments. Very good. Council questions, comments? I think it makes sense. Pretty straight ahead. Welcome, New Holland Brewing. We have a motion. We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is approved. Thank you. Next, City Council will be asked to consider the introduction of a proposed text amendment of the zoning ordinance regarding the requirements for fencing or similar barriers for swimming pools.
I'll make a motion to approve the introduction of a proposed text amendment to Article, my Roman numerals are rusty, 17, Section 1725.2 of the zoning ordinance regarding the requirements for fencing or similar barriers for swimming pools.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Again, public comment 6370777. Ms. Kate?
Sure. This is a text amendment, as you stated, for the regulation and requirements for fencing or similar barriers around swimming pools. The Michigan Building Code does allow for alternate uses or power safety covers instead of barriers or fences. The Planning Commission reviewed this but felt that while the covers are nice, they definitely thought that fences were also needed. So their recommendation is to allow the use of power safety covers in addition to fences. So that would, that's the recommendation, is that they can add those additional safety requirements, but they still do need a fence.
Sounds good. We'll do any public comments first, and then we'll let the council jump in. No one from the crowd is jumping up. Are they all clear?
No colors.
All right, perfect. Council comments? So this was partially brought up because the state has said the auto covers are sufficient, right? That's where we're at?
Right, swimming pools are regulated by the state Michigan Building Code of 2015, and in 2015, standards were adopted by the International Swimming Pool and Spa Code, and that does recognize that power safety covers can be recognized as a sufficient barrier to, accidents or accidental drownings, but other communities can allow for additional safety requirements in addition to power safety covers.
Yeah. And I had said this to you earlier, as a person that owns a power safety cover, it is better than any fence you could ever put up. But just like a fence, if you don't close the gate, it doesn't work. If you don't cover up, it doesn't work. So I'm okay with redundancy. I understand the need for both. So, but they are pretty amazing. So I will say that. And we have both. So we had a motion, we had a second. If there's no other council comments, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It is introduced. Thank you. All right. That takes us to the next item. City Council will be asked to consider the introduction of the proposed golf cart ordinance as outlined in the packet. Now, what do you think on this one? Do we dare? Because I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of give and take as far as discussion. If we don't think we're going to introduce this as discussed, do you want us to have discussion first, or I just have a feeling it's not going to go through as we've got it written down here, so.
I think that we've designed this so we can kind of clarify what the council really wants. I know that we had a series of recommendations come to the planning commission, from the planning commission that we updated the council on earlier within the first 3 months of this year. So it may have been a while. So if the council would like to have a refresher from myself and Attorney Nick Curcio on what we kind of thought the recommendations were and what you'd like to see in the ordinance going forward, we've kind of tailored this introduction to kind of be, well, what would you really like to see in there? So when we bring it back for adoption next meeting, we'll have the items that you're looking for.
Okay, perfect. So we can be flexible with that regard. All right. Then in that case, we can see if there's a motion in a second to introduce what's there.
Mr. Mayor, if council seeks to make changes to that, does it have to go back to planning commission?
It does not, because this is not it's not a zoning or land use regulation, so this would just be for here.
So as long as it was notified in the paper for the proper amount of time and everything would be
Yes.
okay. Okay.
I'll make a motion. Let's see, I'll make a motion to consider, no, shoot, I just lost it. I'll make a motion to consider the introduction of proposed golf cart ordinance as outlined in the packet.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Public comment, 637-0777. After we hear from Kate, we will pull up your call. Kate.
All right, Mayor, I'll ask Nick Curcio to come on up and jump
Good
in
evening,
Travis's
Nick.
seat.
Thank you for joining us, as always.
And as you've noticed, that's fine, too. As you've noticed, we put into the staff report what we passed in 2016, which was a resolution that allowed the city to follow the state statute. We have also heard from the Planning Commission, there was a review undertaken there. There were some additional safety features that the Planning Commission recommended the City Council consider. Nick, would you want to run those down?
Sure. So just as a quick recap, as Kate mentioned, a few years ago, the City Council adopted a resolution to allow golf carts. Golf carts don't currently have their own section in the city code, which we've heard makes it sometimes difficult for citizens to find what the rules are for golf carts. So part of this ordinance amendment would just be to kind of consolidate the rules into a single section of the code that's easier to access for the public. We have the existing regulations listed here. A lot of them come directly from a state statute. You have to be, I can run through them quickly, but only allowed between April 15 and October 15, essentially the summer months. operator must be 16 years old and have a driver's license. And then there's a number of regulations about the types of roads they can drive on, the speed limit, the speed can't exceed 15 miles per hour, can't operate on streets with a speed limit less than 30 miles per hour, and can't operate, before sunset to half an hour after sunset. So those are some of the regulations. During the Planning Commission, it seemed like not all of the public was aware that those regulations exist, so it's just kind of useful to recap what's already there and applies via state law. So a couple of the recommendations coming out of the Planning Commission are listed in the kind of the second part of the memo. The first was that a golf cart would be to place a limitation on the number of passengers in a golf cart so that you couldn't have more than it was essentially advertised for or sold for. So you couldn't pack people into the existing seats. The understanding was that generally the rows of seats are intended to accommodate 2 people across. So this would prohibit you from packing more than that into each of those bench seats. The second one being a golf cart must be insured under a homeowner's or renter's policy. Our understanding is that a lot of these already are insured, but it would be up to the homeowner at the time of registration, up to the golf cart owner at the time of registration to produce proof of valid insurance, just kind of making sure that everyone is protected if there were to be an accident, because they're typically not insured under a traditional vehicle insurance.
Nick, can I ask you a question on
Yes.
that? I'm not sure I understand the homeowner's policy aspect. Homeowner's policy generally covers the equipment, so it would cover the golf cart. But if a child fell off the back, if a person fell off the side and someone ran over them, or they just fell off, they had a guest on it, who covers the physical liability of the person? Homeowners covers physical liability?
Right. No, the homeowners would not cover the physical liability there. Yeah, I don't know if your vehicle insurance would cover that or not. You'd have tort remedies against the driver if the driver was negligent. If there was a vehicle involved, then the other vehicle's insurance could potentially cover. But in terms of the falling off of the back, there could very well be a gap in insurance coverage, and it could just be the driver being personally liable if they were driving negligently or were intoxicated.
But let's say
or
they're
things like
driving
that.
perfectly well and someone falls off. Accidents happen, that's why it's an accident. The bigger liability is not his equipment, his or her equipment, it is the human being on there that could fall off, get knocked off, have a car hits the side, whatever. I think we should absolutely make sure you can't drive a golf cart unless you have liability insurance, no more than you can drive a vehicle on the roads today without liability insurance. You have to have insurance. So I'm not trying to pick on golf cart owners, I'm for them. I don't want them to drive and have people physically liable with no insurance to cover them. That just seems like a no-brainer on that.
Right. We can do some research as to what those policies cover. That is the typical purpose of homeowners insurance, is to cover equipment and not necessarily liability. So
Yeah, not the health part.
And that's what we've seen other communities have a similarly worded requirement, but I'm not sure off the top of my head that it covers the liability situation. So we might be able to check and see what's available. There's probably some type of liability insurance you could purchase. I don't know what the cost of that would be, but it's something we can look into before the next meeting.
Well, that becomes tricky, because you're talking about just health insurance. I mean, that wouldn't be unlike if you had a motorcycle or something, if you were something, well, it might be different, but, people have all these toys that they go out and play on, and you get hurt, your
Well,
personal
use the
insurance then takes care of it.
analogy of a motorcycle. It's not the cost of the motorcycle that you worry about, it's the cost of the person or persons on the motorcycle. That's covered by motorcycle insurance, the liability of the people. Same thing with your car. And I have no idea, and you own one, so do you know if someone's on that with you, when you get into a car accident, or worse yet, someone falls off the back, do you have insurance to cover the physical liability of the people, not the
Yeah, it's
not
my
the
understanding that
actual
falls
golf
under
cart?
your personal insurance, your personal health insurance.
Your health insurance as well.
Health insurance would
cover
cover that?
liability.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
And my question, even a simpler, but the same thing, if someone with a golf cart knocks my mailbox down, does homeowner insurance cover that? Who has to make restitution? And I don't know, that you know the answer, but
I wouldn't
I would
think
throw
so.
that in as something else we probably need to look at.
Right, yeah, maybe we need to be looking at a general liability policy that we can maybe purchase separate for, I mean, it sounds like that exists for motorcycles. I don't know whether it exists for golf carts, but we can do some looking at that
And-
before we come back.
or at least know
Please.
what's, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think we want to start requiring, crazy amounts of insurance if it's not currently an issue. It's more a question of just understanding, to your point.
What
if
we're
someone-
talking about.
You're personally liable if you,
Yeah.
I mean, that wouldn't be atypical if you were, operating anything. If you damage someone's property, you're
Yeah.
responsible for it.
I know I was on council the first time when we approved golf carts, and the insurance conversation came up, and they talked about individual coverage on a cart was ridiculous. And so then someone said, well, your homeowner's insurance will cover your golf cart. And then everyone seemed to be okay with that, but then for some reason, we didn't pursue either of them. So I
Right.
guess we need to, look at those again.
Right, when we were researching how other communities handle the insurance, this was kind of the standard provision, but these are very good questions. I don't think that it covers these two scenarios. I think it's more for the cost of the cart.
And the one thing I wanted to add before we go too much further, we keep saying golf carts, but this also would apply to the side-by-sides or the mules. The city operates mules on the roads, right? So
This is
we're using golf
specific-
carts as a general term, or we?
No, this is actually specific to
Just
golf
golf
carts.
carts,
The ORV, that's a separate conversation under a separate ordinance that I think we're also going to be looking into. There is some
Okay.
confusion as to how to classify various things when modifications are made. But this is specifically to golf carts.
Just
The
golf carts.
Definition of
Okay.
golf carts come from state law. It's got its own little section of the vehicle code.
Okay, and I'd argue those RVs are way safer, so the
Right.
mules are way safer. But, okay, sorry, no. That was it for mine.
Oh, and then the final part of the recommendation, there's a list of items that a municipality safety items municipality can require on carts that the city did not require at the time it did its 2016 resolution. And the planning commission recommended that most of that list be adopted. The specific things are listed in the staff report. One stop lamp and one lamp with a mechanical signal device to comply with, and there's just a bunch of state law references about exactly how they're supposed to be designed. One exterior mirror mounted to the driver's side of the golf cart, and either one exterior mirror mounted on the passenger side of the golf cart or one interior mirror as required for low-speed vehicles. Brakes and parking brake that comply with state law, a horn that complies with state law, a windshield that complies with state law, a manufacturer's identification number affixed to the frame of the golf cart, and safety belts that comply with state law as well. My understanding is a lot of golf carts come with these items already. Some may not, and then if this were adopted, the owner would have to get those custom installed. And there were a few in that list that the planning commission ultimately decided not to recommend. So this is only the list that the planning commission wished to recommend. So those are the three recommendations that would be incorporated into this draft ordinance that would be new. The rest of these draft ordinance would just be kind of codifying what was already there, either through state law or the 2016 resolution.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Could you separate out of these recommendations from the planning commission what's in the state guide now and what isn't?
Yes, so of the new,
And
The
the reason
bottom-
I asked that is because when we passed this ordinance in the beginning, we wanted to stick to the state guidelines for liability reasons, the way I understood it from previous council.
okay,
So I'm wondering what's outside of those state guidelines in this ordinance?
so the state statute specifically says that a municipality can adopt these safety requirements, the ones I just listed off. So after the third bullet point, there's the kind of series of indented bullet points, all those extra safety requirements. State law specifically allows municipality to require, but doesn't require in and of itself.
So I think it's item D, numbers 1 through 7. Was that what you're suggesting came from planning?
I don't see an A, B, C, or D
bullet
on my
list.
sheet.
If we're looking at the staff report, you're looking at the text of the ordinance itself.
Sorry, yep.
Yes, in the text of the ordinance itself, item D is authorized by state law, but not required by state law.
Okay.
Those would be all the safety equipment. The other recommendations about limiting to the number of people in the seat and requiring insurance are not specifically mentioned in state law at all. So these were recommendations.
Can you mention that again, please?
The insurance requirement and the restriction on the number of people that can be carried in a golf cart.
Are not in the state?
They're not specifically mentioned in the state statute, no. It would be the city through its general police power.
So the insurance, the number of people, and what else?
Those are the only two.
Okay.
The others are listed in the statute as things the municipality can require.
So why would we want to step out on a limb and limit those?
Limit what? What's that?
Why would we want to step out, separate ourselves from that and require an insurance that I guess we can't understand or agree on to what it covers or what we're requiring and a number of people on a cart?
Those were recommendations from the planning commission, I guess, based on their experience or concerns from the public. There are other communities that require both. Staff researched some other ordinances and was able to find those two requirements. I think presented them to the planning commission as options, and they thought they would be worthwhile. So the state statute is kind of a floor of what can be required, and municipalities do sometimes go beyond.
And as our council, what is your opinion on those two items?
So the insurance requirement, I think the questions that were raised are good ones. We probably want to understand what is available under that coverage and things like that before adopting this. You know, I think that the limiting the seats is whether it be a legally enforceable regulation. If you think that it's good policy, I would say go ahead with it. I don't think it.
I'm looking for enforceable. I don't want to put the people that need to enforce these rules in a position of not being able to enforce them or trying to interpret them. I want it simple, cut and dry, easy for everyone to understand so that there's no question marks.
Okay, throw in one thought on that. The item that requires safety belts, which we've had that concern for a long time, if the safety belts are per the manufacturer's recommended guidelines of number of occupants, then it'd be pretty enforceable, because you pull over a vehicle and there's only 2 seat belts and you got 6 people.
I'm leaning more on the insurance side. If we can't decide here what kind of insurance we're going to require, how are we going to enforce it?
Right. And I don't disagree. That's part of what I was saying. I think we're going to make it too complicated if we're worried about liability or personal health insurance. I understand I insure mine because if I get smashed, I don't want to lose my value. But the other, I take care of myself. You know what I mean? So I don't disagree with you on that.
I know homeowners have liability insurance, but I don't know if it covers you off the site of the home.
Agreed.
You know, you might have to have an umbrella policy added at that point, and I'm not sure what type of expense there is or what that involves, so.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I'm personally more worried. But I mean, for me, it's the biggest complaints we hear about is people on the back dangling off, too many people on the golf carts.
As long as we're on complaints, do we have a report from staff or,
Yes, I can have Chief Thompson come on up.
thank you.
Good evening, thank you. I have some numbers regarding golf cart enforcement back to 2018. And granted, there are an equal number of warnings given. It was just difficult to track those. So, but these are numbers for citations that were written by the South Haven Police Department. In 2018, there were, and this includes, golf carts and ORVs, so I'll include both. There were 2 citations written for ORVs being driven after hours. There were 2 citations written for golf carts being driven in the bike lanes, which any vehicle other than a bicycle driving in a bike lane is a misdemeanor. There were also 2 golf cart citations written for driving after hours. That means after dark. In 2019, there were 9 total citations issued. 4 were for golf carts being operated after hours. 1 for a golf cart being operated in a restricted roadway, meaning a speed limit of over 30 miles an hour. One was cited for speeding, golf cart. Again, another golf cart in the bike lane. One OWI, which is a driving while intoxicated by alcohol with a high BAC. So that was an extremely drunk person driving a golf cart on a city street. And then there was one arrest for driving with a suspended driver's license, because again, you have to be at least 16 years old and possess a valid driver's license to operate a golf cart. In 2020, there have been 25 citations issued. 6 were issued to golf carts for being driven after hours. 6 citations were issued to golf carts driving in bike lanes. 3 were issued to golf carts for disregarding traffic control devices. That can either mean a stop sign or a traffic light. 5 citations were issued to golf carts for driving on restricted roadways. Again, that means a road with a speed limit that was too high. There was an arrest for a drunk driver involved in a crash. And finally, there was another one issued to a person driving a golf cart with no driver's license. And then not included, we did have one injury, I call it a crash, but it was on private property. So that is not something where we make an arrest for if someone is intoxicated. Like I said, that did result in injury, but we did not write a citation or make any arrest for that. And with these numbers, there's at least an equal amount of, I call them warnings, or a lot of educating. And we're trying to do a better job of educating everybody. We've got our cheat sheets, but that is a big issue we run into, is just people aren't aware of what the rules are. So those are the numbers that I have. Any questions?
Chief Thompson, while we have you here, looking at this list of new suggestions, are there any that you think would be hard to enforce? You know, kind of back to Steve's question, he wants to make your job easier, not harder.
Right. I would be agreeable to anything that the city council would vote on. I'm not opposed to any of them, and, whatever you decide to pass, we would definitely
Adopt
find
and
ways
overcome.
to enforce it, yes. So, I
Okay.
agree with any safety, so whatever you all decide, we would find ways to enforce it.
Okay.
How easy is it to track and find somebody? If you hear of an issue happening, how do you find them? I mean, a lot of these golf carts look identical. So what ways do we have to find somebody versus a license plate?
Are you asking to fine?
Yeah,
Like,
no, to find them.
To
Okay,
find
yeah.
them? Like if they're involved in an incident? and
Yeah,
there's a-
or is this all just a police officer happened to see this at the time?
These are traffic stops.
Okay.
But that was just identifying the golf carts. We do have the registration stickers, and I just call them not a formal registration through the state, but the little stickers that we have where people come into the police department and they fill out an information form. Now, that's not really readily available while we're on patrol. I mean, we can call into the IC and they've got it on a database, but that was the purpose of the stickers, just so we can identify who at least the owner is. But that's pretty limited, because just because someone owns the golf cart, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the person operating it. So it can be difficult because they're not required anymore to have a license plate. So unlike any other vehicle, you can run the license plate and immediately find out who the vehicle belongs to. And with golf carts, it's a little bit more difficult, but our stickers that we provide at the police department do help that. So we can at
But
least
you've
identify.
got to walk up and see those pretty close, I imagine.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Chief, question. If I got your numbers right, it sounded like you said total citations for 2020 was 25. Did I hear that right?
Yes, and when I was reading those, I think we're 3 short, so I'm missing 3. I just had an officer help me with the total, and I think there were 3 more, but I don't I don't see
So
what those
give or take
violations
20.
are for, yeah.
So it sounds like to me, with 150 days in our summer, 25 citations is not much at all. I
No.
would compare that to cars in our city, it's I'm going to guess a lot higher, because this is my opinion, I don't see people driving golf carts driving poorly, for the most part. And whatever they're doing wrong, they get a citation. But 25 citations, either we're not citing the people that should, or they're not breaking the law very often, because 25, in your opinion, is 25 a lot for the summer?
It's more, I guess, than we've written in previous years, but again, this year's been so unusual. You know, it could be to COVID and more people not working or whatnot, so I don't know if the uniqueness of 2020 has increased, you know, more golf carts being driven. You know, I know the number is higher than the previous 2 years. But in answer to your question, you know, we haven't had a lot of accidents, which is a good thing. And it's hard to compare golf carts to other vehicles because generally there's more other vehicles on the roadways. And, you know, we try and prioritize traffic enforcement, you know, where we do have a lot of the
Is it
accidents or
going
serious
up per
ones.
year or going down or staying stable?
Our overall accident
The
rate?
number of citations and accidents?
You know, I don't have that information right now, but I know this summer, without looking at actual statistics, we had a lot of serious crashes with motor vehicles at some of our bigger intersections, Blue Star and Phoenix, Blue Star and M140, Blue Star and M43, and then I-196 too. And generally speed were the result of
That's
those.
cars.
Yes, that's vehicles,
So,
that's not
but
golf
for
carts.
golf carts, we haven't,
Nope, I think
Too
what
many
I can
problems?
see here, we've had one on the roadway, I think that we've cited, and then the one on private property that's been reported to us.
thanks.
Yes.
So if you were to look, like I'm looking at the first one, I would just go down these item by item. So a stop lamp and a lamp or mechanical signal device. So turning signals, I'm assuming front and rear. The mirrors, I understand. Brakes, I understand. Horn, I was more concerned about a headlight, taillight versus a horn. So I don't know what the thought was, or, I mean, as a public safety officer, I had thoughts on a horn versus lights.
You know, they're both to enhance safety. You know, a horn is to get someone's attention, and to maybe prevent an accident. You know, they're all safety measures, so I can't really say if one's better than the
Agreed.
other. I don't know
Gotcha.
if that answers your question.
Well, it's
but-
good. No, I was just curious because I was, you know, again, I'm just trying to kind of figure out, we we allow them out pretty close to dark. And I worry about visibility. I've been out and seen them cruising around a little before dark, and it's, you know, they're
Yes.
a little smaller and they're hard to see sometimes, so, got it. And safety belts. The other one that's not on here, and I don't know at what point in time, but rear-facing seats, as far as an age restriction on who should be allowed to be in the rear-facing seats, we hear a lot of complaints about kids hanging off the back of golf carts. I would not be opposed to having an age restriction on the rear-facing seats, and it would not break my heart if it was 18 and above, personally.
Like I said, whatever you decide on, I will support, but I definitely agree with any safety measures that you would choose.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the one I think that is missing from this list. So,
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
question. With the seatbelts, I was assuming, and maybe I'm incorrect, that if we're requiring seatbelts, the seatbelts would have to be on those seats facing backwards. So if there are children on the back, they would be required to wear seatbelts. Because my biggest scare driving in this town is golf carts in front of me where kids are hanging on the back and no seatbelts. Other than that, I have no problem with the golf carts. I actually think they're good for the environment. People can park two in one spot. I mean, I think it's a fun thing for people.
Oh,
But
I-
I don't like the fact that kids are hanging out the
Yeah.
back with no seatbelts. And that seems like a no-brainer. So does our seatbelt requirement, because I don't know those numbers, does it require seatbelts? Anybody answer that? Nick, does that mean they have to have seatbelts in those seats facing the rear?
manufacturer's recommendations. So it would depend on the make of the golf cart. My understanding is some golf carts don't have the rear seats, and the ones that do, I don't know for certain whether those typically come with the seatbelts.
You have to add them. You have to add
You
the
have to add
seatbelts.
them.
Yeah. And again, with kids, I mean, they have to be in a safety chair anyways to a certain age in a car. I've seen a lot of 4 and 5-year-olds, 3-year-olds that were sitting on back, and grandpa's cruising around, and grandpa, it's not the braking, it's the taking off again that can push the kids off the back.
And
But
that's
I
why
think
I'm not
that
a
would be
fan
an
of
issue.
kids in the rear.
Yeah.
I'm seatbelt or not, I'm not
My
a fan.
kids would climb out, and they'd actually get choked out trying to mess with the belt anyways. I mean, I know my little ones.
Yeah, that's my biggest fear, and that happens, and like I said, I enjoy golf carts as well. Anything we can do to ensure their safety will ensure we continue to have them on our streets. So that's why I view these as important. So,
So Mayor, just to clarify, in addition to what we have listed here, you're looking for an age restriction for rear-facing seats, whether or not they have a safety belt or not?
correct. Well, you gotta have safety belt. I mean, I don't think we're not gonna waver on safety belts. I don't think that's up for discussion.
So safety belts on the rear seats and an additional age restriction.
Absolutely.
Okay.
For a cart
Regardless
that we're
of what the
requiring to be under
manufacturer
15 miles an hour.
require seatbelts.
So what if they don't have it?
What? I couldn't hear that.
Just because I always speak the way I feel, I'll speak the way I feel right now. Right now, we require, if the vehicle does not have an electric or a mechanical signal, we require them to do like you do when you're riding a bicycle, your left turn, your right turn, and everything else. We require these golf carts, we're not talking about ORVs, we're talking about golf carts. We require them not to exceed 15 miles per hour. So I can take my motorcycle on I-75 and go 75 miles an hour. I don't have to wear a helmet and I don't got a seatbelt on, but we're gonna require a 15 mile per hour golf cart to be seat belted. And now we wanna put lights and lamps and all this other stuff on. And Natalie, thank you for your report. That was very good. I appreciate that. But I just think we ought to think this over a little bit. And I would even entertain a motion to table it.
Nick, I have one additional question. So, my thought is, if we pass everything on this list, we want everything, and there's a large number of golf carts already out there. So suddenly my golf cart is now not up to code and I have to spend this money. Do we anticipate any litigation against the city for changing the rules after the game has started, so to speak?
So the safety requirements themselves are specifically authorized by state law. I think we
Yeah,
have,
I'm sorry.
you
So
know,
then specifically the new ones, like adding a seatbelt, adding turn signals, adding mirrors, adding,
Yeah, the state statute has this same list. It's actually a slightly longer list
Okay.
than what the planning commission recommended, and says the municipality can adopt these restrictions. So I don't think there'd be any claim against the municipality for doing what state law says, that specifically says that the municipality can do. But the cost is certainly a concern. The ones that are already registered is somewhat of a concern because we were having some discussion with the chief about this. The thought was that when a vehicle comes into register, the police department would do kind of a quick inspection to make sure that these things were included. But it has not done that for the ones that are already registered, and it's not an annual registration. It's just a one-time registration. So there is that kind of transition gap. But they would, if this were adopted, everyone would be required to put those items into the vehicle, and there would obviously be costs associated with that if they didn't have them already.
and that's what I'm wondering. If I have to add all that stuff to my cart, can I seek any, retribution from the city for making me change the vehicle because I bought it within the rules that the city had, and now suddenly you've changed the rules?
I don't think there's a viable legal claim, and the ordinance doesn't provide for any
I don't think
payment or
the
anything like
cost
that.
is that much anyways. It's, 2 seatbelts is $25. A mirror is $15. The turn signals would be the questionable thing. I've done it all to mine. That's how I know. But to add seatbelts are pretty easy. It's 2 bolts. It's the turn signals that might be a little bit tough, but I don't think it's more than $50 to do it yourself.
I would note there was a little bit of debate at the planning commission level about the turn signals. I believe at least one commissioner thought it might not be necessary because they're not driving at night anyway, but that it did get included in the ultimate recommendation was to include the turn signals.
And when you bring that up, that's the biggest violation I see with golf carts. I see them out after dark all the time. But that's, you know,
Well, also too, I have several of my customers have golf carts and people I deal with on a daily basis, and a lot of them think it's a half hour after sunset and a half hour before sunrise, but it's actually a half hour before sunset. You're
Before,
not supposed
yeah.
to be on the road, and it's a half hour after sunrise that you can start to be on the road again. And I think part of the problem is we need possibly some better signage on some of our trunk lines that do not allow the golf carts to be on them. And I also think more education and a stricter permitting process may be in order. But I just don't see the reason to make things more complicated. I'm sorry.
I guess any other thoughts from the council? Is there anything on this list that people want removed or?
Well, I'm for
added,
the,
or-
obviously for not allowing little kids in back. It's the takeoff. Those electric engines are very quick to take off. 15 miles an hour is not very fast, but mine can get up to 15 miles an hour in about a second or two. One thought I had is identification numbers on the actual vehicle. If there is an issue, we can see it. You can see just like I got an MC on my boat, I've got a license plate on my car. It's not a big deal to put an ID number of 120 or something on a golf cart, and then the police department actually can see, hey, we've heard problems with this. We need to go talk to them. I think that would solve a lot of solutions, or solve a lot of issues. That's about it for me. So.
Would that be just a larger decal than
Just
what's
a larger
currently-
decal. Just you can buy them, same one you put on your mailbox. It's like a 2.5, 3-inch black lettering.
I think Joe had something.
Oh, sorry, Joe, go ahead.
I was just, for what it's worth, I know Steve mentioned about motorcycles. I owned one. I can't imagine an adult driving a motorcycle at 75 miles an hour with a young person on the back where they're not clinging to you, because that's what you do when you ride a motorcycle. The person puts their arm around you and holds on. With a golf cart, parents don't know what the kids are doing in the back, because sometimes it's even 3 rows. And that last row, the kids aren't hanging on. They're just sitting there and they start fooling around and they can easily fall off. So I don't think the analogy really holds up. And I understand, Steve, you hate regulations. I don't want to over-regulate golf carts. But there is one thing we should regulate, and that's the safety of people in the back, especially children. Because I've seen too many times them hanging on and hitting a bump and almost falling off. And I'm driving right behind them. And I don't know if I could even stop in time, even at 15 miles an hour. You can cover 20 foot within a second. So that's all.
Yeah, well, I don't think, never mind.
That's good.
I'm done.
That's good. So I guess we've heard that. I've got a concern. We have a few concerns. Kate, Nick, how would you suggest we word, if the concern is we want to limit the age of the rear-facing seats? The ordinance says 16 to even operate one. Any other, anybody else? 16, 18.
16 makes sense to me, because you can drive it at 16.
If you're old enough to know the difference.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do we want to seek any public comments?
what's that?
Do we want public?
We do, we got to still get public, yeah, that's still yet to be done. I just want to see if there's any other, and maybe we should do that. I guess we threw that, let's do that. Let's get any other public comments, 6370777. We have some visitors in the audience. Maybe we'll start with Rosalie, unless Natalie's coming, nope, Natalie's passing. Rosalie, come on up, you'll state your name and address, and then again, public, 6370777.
Boy,
Welcome.
this is so exciting. Rosalie Placati, 559 Monroe Boulevard. And maybe you haven't seen it on your corner, Joe, but I think we're in this position, Mr. Schleck, because of the abuse of the golf carts. I agree. I have talked to people, and they're quite irate about new restrictions because they're following the rules. Unfortunately, what I've seen in front of my house is 90% of the people not following the rules. So when this energy came to the Planning Commission, and I'm not alone, it's ridiculous what's out there. maybe a golf cart made for 4 people have 6 or 7 people. The kids hanging off. They're not stopping at stop signs. And enforcement is one of my major concerns as well. I don't think we should do anything that we can't enforce. So I think there's some creative ways we can look at this. I think there needs to be a new registration every year. I think there needs to be an oval number, like you said, Chris, on both sides of the golf cart. Because what I won't do anymore is call the police department. I will not call 911. I will not call the 5151. They are so busy, and I respect them so much as professionals that of the work they have to do. I'm not going to bother them about some idiots on a golf cart. But what I would do is say, oh, number 123 has 6 people on it, and they just didn't stop. Now, is that an urgent call? No. Is that something I could call in and they could log? Yes. Is that somebody they could follow up with? Yes. And then when they register again the next year, they can say, oh gosh, we've had 3 calls on you. And you could, if we're enforcement, you could at some point get a warning, which I love that our chief wants to educate and warn. The second time you get a fine, maybe the third time you lose your number. And that's when I would call 911 and say, I just saw a golf cart without a number. And that is easily enforceable. Again, the only reason we are here is because of the people that are abusing it. I was with somebody this weekend who was just furious because she does everything right. But the couple of times I've stopped golf carts and come up beside them, they've always been underage. They've stopped in the middle of the street, not using any kind of hand signals. They don't even know what they are. And had anybody else come up behind them in a hurry, they would have been hit. So God is good that we haven't had any accidents. But like I've told the mayor, I never want to see a little one, because that will change my life forever, and I think it'll change the city's life forever. So I think there's some easy ways to do this. That's going to take some extra steps in procedure. I'd be glad to help and volunteer if you all need volunteers doing it. But I think with a registration every year, people are going to get, and people will be mad. You know, they will, because it is fun. But I think if we want to be the city I know we can be as far as being safe, this is what we're going to have to do. So thank you.
Thanks, Rosalie.
We have an online caller. Phil can put him through.
Perfect.
Put that person through.
Caller, you're on with the city council. Please state your name, and then you'll have 5 minutes to complete your comments. When you're done, just state that you finished.
Okay. Right now?
Yep, you can go ahead.
Okay. My name is Kay Engelbrecht, and I live at 125 Elkenberg Street, Unit 4. And my comment is I believe that there would be a lot more citations issued, but the police just, they can't be everywhere at one time. And there are people going by on Elkenberg Street so often with underage kids driving and 6 kids in a 4-person golf cart. And it's, there are a lot of people that are breaking the rules. So the 25 citations could easily be 50 or 100 if we had enough officers to issue the citations. So we do need all these rules to be enforced and to be in place. So I appreciate that we are going to have some type of a change to the codes for the golf carts. Now, the suggestion of no under 16 or under 18 people in the rear seat, that may be very difficult for people to follow. If you have a couple that have 2 children that are 6 and 8 years old, you can't very well not have one child in the back seat. If you have the dad driving with a younger child in the front seat and the mom sitting in the back seat with another child, you're going to have a young child in the back. So you may need to think of a way to word it or change the way that you're thinking about restricting youngsters in the back seat. And that's my comment. I appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank
Goodbye.
you. Thank you for the call.
No other calls.
All the calls. All right, very good. Anybody else out here? Mr. Good?
Based on that call, maybe we're looking for no unattended children under 16.
That's fair. Yeah. That way at least you have the ability to have unattended by an adult. Could we be clear on that?
How will our police officers know how old they are if they're following them?
Yeah, if they're not 16, they're not going to have an ID. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know 22-year-olds that look like they're 14. I'm just trying to put myself in their position.
Oh, yeah.
And my concern is, all this is good, and those people that are listening and watching and read the paper will know and understand. But it's going to be the visitors. It's going to be the same people that go out on the pier when the waves are big. That how do we get them? And
How do we enforce that?
because it's our people, I think, are the good ones. It's the visitors that are the ones that are ruining it for the rest of us.
Is it mostly rental golf carts? Because we have rental golf carts in town.
Yeah.
Or maybe they need to inform their renters
Mhm.
better.
All right. Well, we have a motion and a second. Is there anything, does anyone want to make a motion to add anything regarding age restriction? No interest at this time for rear facing.
I don't think we've even settled the insurance question yet, have we?
I think that was to be looked into. I think at this point in time, the question is to introduce as discussed, and if there's no real changes.
Right, you could introduce the ordinance and direct staff to do certain things before the next meeting. One of those that we'll definitely do is to look at what the insurance covers. We can also get you more detail about where exactly the seatbelts would have to install. So there's a cross-reference to state law, and we can have more detail about where exactly state law would require the seatbelts to be installed. If you'd like us to draft any language changes, it would be helpful to know what topics you're looking to address that the ordinance doesn't already address.
But my question is, how would you put out public notice for the ordinance change for the right amount of time when we don't know what the ordinance is going to read like?
So it would be introduced as is. I mean, if you're doing major changes, you would probably want to have 2 more hearings before adopting it. I think we can make kind of minor changes. It's a little bit of a gray area, but if there's something substantial, you'd want to do it. You'd want to, for a process point, have probably 2 more readings.
So if we wanted to maybe look at a sticker system, and also maybe I thought the lady had a great point about a minor attended by an adult in the rear seat, then it's something we should look at maybe more meetings on, or I'm assuming that doesn't sound like too much of a minor change.
Right. So the unattended concept, I think, is one that we would need to have some more detail about. Would you want to have like a parent or a person of a certain age immediately beside them, or
I mean,
think that's difficult.
I saw
for
a
enforceability.
3-year-old and a 5-year-old sitting. Someone had the back down where your bench can go flat, and they were sitting on there, and they were driving towards the bridge, and I was behind them, and the kids were like bouncing, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me! And this grandpa thought it was great, and I'm like, my kids would get up and jump off. Or fall off. So, I mean, I think it's something maybe we should look at. It surprises me that people don't think that way, but at least strap those kids down or hold them down or something. Just thoughts.
We do currently have a sticker registration. Maybe many of you recognize this. It's the green flip-flop sticker. Now, we didn't do it annually because really we're not requiring any cost. And every year, if we have to purchase stickers and have to go through that, there could be a cost that we
Yeah.
can't really pass on to golf cart owners. That's something we also learned the first time around. So really, if we're just asking them to register and we can put the sticker on the back or somewhere where it's visible, then we can track it back to whom owns it. And every year, if we do have some changes, we can notify all of these people in writing and saying, hey, there have been new regulations, you're in our system, please come back and make sure that you are code compliant.
I agree. I just think that if we see the same golf cart doing the same stupid stuff all the time from a distance, and you can see their number, it'd be a lot easier saying, hey, man, this 11-year-old keeps driving around town trying to do donuts. So
Right.
I'm not going to be able to catch his tiny number on there.
We can go for, so you want a larger sticker set.
I agree 100% with more identifiable.
Okay. We can
Makes
look
it
at that.
easier to enforce.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So a more identifiable sticker, I mean, we have this identification number. Is that one and the same, or, I mean,
It
two
usually
different
comes with
things?
so it'll come with a number on there, but yeah, they are kind of small, so we
They
can
are
get a
small.
larger one. But, you know, you do have a finite amount of real estate on the back of a golf cart, but
Yep.
we can look at larger ones, so they are more readily identifiable.
Even
Not only that, but I think we need a uniform spot on the cart itself for the
Okay.
sticker. Because I see them in different spots on the cart. And if the goal is to be able to identify that cart to turn them in or report them, it should be a uniform, one on each side, I don't know, but it should be bigger and easier to tell for.
And that's going to be easier to educate too. If 11-year-old parents don't know, well, now we can go talk to the parents. So. I would like to see about, with the rest of the council for this or not, but I would like us to see about minors or toddlers, under a certain age group being at least, I think they should be able to read. Be at the age of reading level, to not be unattended in back. So, let's count to 10.
That's a different age for a lot of people.
Well,
That's-
Okay.
I'm still a fan of 16.
So it looks like we have some things to check into, so I'm going to guess that we need some time to do this. We would probably look at bringing a new, or at least some updated research back to the council at your next meeting for another introduction.
That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Do you have what you need to, is there anything else you needed clarification on?
No, I think I've got a good sense, and we'll come up with some language. It may have blanks in part. It sounds like the age is in a bit of a debate. Depending on what the seatbelt says, we can try to figure out what the best wording would be in terms of the attended versus unattended. Perhaps, if all golf carts are going to have 2 seats in the back, maybe we would want to have an adult of a certain age beside of the child or something to that effect. But we'll take a look at what the staff recommendation that can then be introduced and discussed at least two more meetings before anything moves forward.
But I think I would agree with Joe Reeser as well, is that if we have a requirement of having the seatbelt in there, do we need the requirement of the age? If we're gonna require the seatbelt, and you gotta be buckled, do we need to worry whether they're 14 years old or 17 years old? So I agree with Joe on that point. If we're gonna go down the road of seatbelts, just require everybody to be buckled in the seatbelt. Because I think it's just too hard to enforce to guess what age they are.
that makes sense.
And then I would like the insurance defined. If we're gonna require insurance, we gotta tell the people what kind of insurance they're required to have, if we wanna go down that road. I think it needs more time, personally, and I would let the mayor do what he wants.
Clarify the items that are in front of you, and let's bring it back. I think it's not that far off.
And Nick, I'll get you an answer before 10 a.m. tomorrow on insurance. I'll just find out how liability is handled by car insurance. My agent will give me that answer right off the top of their head if people are covered when they drive golf carts. And then we can decide if we want to enforce insurance or not, if we don't want to. But at least we know where we stand. I want to know if somebody hits me in a golf cart and that child gets hurt, can I be sued for liability? Or, God forbid, it's the other way around, they hurt somebody in my car, I don't know how, but are they gonna pay for the physical damage? I mean, I don't care about the car or the cart, I care about the people and what happens. It just seems like a fair question.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to over, complicate this, but I think at least we should know where insurance stands with golf carts, because this is a crazy country with litigation. People sue for everything, so I just want to know what happens if there is an accident with physical injury.
Yeah, that-
Seems like a fair question.
that-
So I'll get you the answer tomorrow morning.
That would be great. I think there's very possibly a distinction between situations where there's a vehicle involved, which is probably what your insurance agent would know the most about. My guess is that that would be covered by like a no-fault insurance that the vehicle owner would have, not the golf cart owner, the actual car owner. But the situation like the one you first asked about, that the child falls out of the golf cart, no vehicle involved, but hits a rock or something like that. I think that's probably not covered, but it'll be, it'd be interesting to know and see if there's something that we could do about that.
Anything else?
No, I don't think so, sir.
Okay.
Do you want to make a motion to table or something?
Yeah,
like
we
that?
should probably do that.
Make a motion to table.
Second?
All right, we have a motion, and a second to table the item. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We will table it until, well, probably 2 meetings from now. Next, City Council will be asked to consider the adoption of a public mural policy for municipally owned property and facilities.
I'll make a motion that we consider adoption of the public mural policy for municipally owned properties and facilities.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Public comment 6370777. Kate?
Yes, sir. So we drafted a mural policy. We've been getting a number of requests for murals on public property, as well as we do already have some murals on public property. There's one at Kids Corner Park, as well as some of the electrical boxes in town. We have a gift policy in place that's been adopted since 2004, modified in 2008, that regulates the gifts that are given to the city and how they can be done, and how they are received, who pays for them, how the maintenance is worked out. But the gift policy doesn't specifically address installation of murals on municipal buildings or property. And so we came up with the idea of drafting a mural policy that dovetailed with the existing gift policy. We came up with a draft policy, and that was floated to both the Parks and Planning Commission. And there were some interesting recommendations that came out of it, notably that the request to paint city streets was not well received. They thought, well, many of the commissions thought that it would be too distracting or would cause confusion for a driver, as well as maybe increase the city's liability with, maybe pedestrians. So that was a recommendation, was not to allow that. The Parks Commission noted that property owners within 200 feet should be notified of a public mural project, and that mural design be reviewed for compliance with any zoning regulations. If you are familiar with your zoning regulations, you can't actually have a mural that's an advertisement, so that's something to keep in mind. The Planning Commission reviewed the draft policy. There was some concern expressed for murals in the travel lanes, as I mentioned. So what we have here is a draft policy, and again, this is for public property only. This is for city-owned property. And we've kind of dovetailed it with the gift policy and just kind of noted some of the different perspective, or the different boards that would go into reviewing it. Ultimately, the reason why there is so much review asked for is that because ultimately this becomes the city's speech.
Could you say that again? It becomes the city's.
It becomes city speech. So if the government decides that, yes, we like this message and goes on a city facility, it becomes effectively government speech. And Nick can kind of go more into that. This also sets parameters if there's vandalism, if it's an advertisement, kind of techniques and materials being used, anything like that. There's an application process and a step sheet on how to get a mural approved should the council wish to adopt this policy.
Okay. Any public phone calls? Or public comments?
No public callers right now on the line. I'm not sure if anybody else in the room. Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, no one's rushing up to do it. Council comments? Thoughts, ideas? Yes, sir?
Can Kate explain point number 8 when it says, talks about themes, landscaping, agriculture, et cetera? What themes are not acceptable then? Are there any themes, or is it just going to be judged on a per-case basis?
Well, this does not say which themes are not acceptable, but it does say that the city reserves the right to reject proposals on murals on city-owned property that they do not agree with. So that's up to this council to decide that.
Okay, so anything is possible. Okay.
Yes.
And again, just to clarify, because we have a gift policy.
Yes, we
So
do.
the gift policy would still be in play because this would ultimately be a gift because we're not funding it. So the gift policy, this policy mirrors it, but we still are ultimately going to fill out that gift policy,
Right,
go
the
through that process, and then this will also go through the boards and commissions.
Right, so this mural policy just establishes the steps it would take for a person who wishes to put a gift on city property. And ultimately, the reasons why are because we go through these number of steps and review, because ultimately it's the city's speech. Once you put something on your building, it becomes your government speech. And yes, this would dovetail with the gift policy, meaning that if a donor wants to say, hey, I want to paint this mural on here, I'm going to donate the materials, I'm going to donate my time. It's all a donation that goes towards the city. Maintenance of the gift also would be wrapped up in the ultimate cost.
Gotcha. So we should reference that somewhere in here?
We can make that reference in here if we want to put that in the front recitals, but
Just
this
so
is
it's
in
clear that
accordance
it's-
with the gift policy.
Perfect. Okay, that was my only question. So if there are no other questions?
Mine's just a clarification, maybe. On item number 11, it says if vandalism occurs, it is the responsibility of the artist to remove the graffiti. I was thinking that in some cases, the artist might be brought in from the outside, so maybe it should be the applicant, whoever applied for the
Right.
mural.
It could be like, there could be a group that comes together, like
Yeah.
a donor, a
Yep.
sponsoring donor. We can make that change in there. Ultimately, if the city staff have to do it, then the city's maintaining the donation, and that's kind of not in accordance with the gift policy. But yes, I can see where we can make it not just the artist, but the sponsoring
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah, the proposer, applicant, yeah.
All right, anything else? Joe?
So just one more bit of clarification. So this all started with Black Lives Matter and a mural. So it looks like, and I don't disagree, that we don't want to have a mural on the streets right in front of City Hall because it could be distracting for drivers. So we talked about, I read in there about colors and all the details. So I get it, no problem with that. But the actual mural or a piece of art that could be given to the city from an artist, in this case Black Lives Matter, or whatever drawing they want to put or painting, it's still up in the air whether we will or won't approve it, and it's based on city council approving it. So it's on an individual case basis. So we're not saying yes or no, they just have to have it approved by city council. Is that about the way it is?
Yes.
Assuming it follows these rules.
Right, the policy kind of lays out, so different areas would require different boards, so if it was in the parks, if there was an installation of art
Gotcha.
in the parks, it should go through to the Parks Commission, possibly Planning Commission, and then City Council for final approval. If it's somewhere in the downtown, definitely ask the DDA for their review, Planning Commission, City Council. So yes, there's a number of boards that would just kind of, that would weigh in on this, but it's on an ad hoc basis. Each one be individually considered.
Anybody else?
Well, I think I spoke it the last time. I don't believe there should be any public murals on any public properties. And I would even go so far as that the murals that are in place right now, I don't think they were properly put in place because we didn't have a policy, so I'm split on that. But I just feel personally that we shouldn't have murals on public property, period. That's my feelings.
Very good. Yeah, this addressed my concerns, and I'm happy we're not talking about murals on streets, and I think we have to have a process in place for murals, so at least this is a step in the right direction. So I would vote in favor of putting something on the books. So when this comes up in the future, we have a mechanism to handle them. So if there's no other discussion, we have a motion and a second.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry to bring this up again, but, so are we saying that the new statutes that have been put around the city would fall under this, and under that thinking, that's in a public location, and therefore, under Steve's thinking, we shouldn't have?
No,
it?
that's not my thinking, Joe.
That's why I'm asking the question. I'm trying to understand the difference. I'm not disagreeing or agreeing, I just want to understand what the difference is of someone coming and making a statue, donating it to the city, putting it on the corner, and it's not political, it's not even a social statue, it's a statue. Is that considered public property, and would that be permittable?
Statutes are regulated under the gift policy, and they're specifically called out as public statue art or public art. And my understanding is that through a number of the different reconstruction projects we've done on Phoenix Street and Center Street does contemplate a number of those statues being in place, and that's why there's those big square stands that you see on those streets. My understanding is that there is I believe there's a committee that looks for the artists, that sponsors the artists. I don't know much more about it other than that, but here, this is a public mural, so it's not so much looking at a statue. This is actually painting or installation of a mural, so obviously a painting on city facilities, so a building or ultimately a building, because we've kind of rolled out streets and sidewalks.
So a mural is defined more as a painting, and a statue is a statue. So that's the distinction? So
Right.
statues could be allowed on public property, but not paintings?
Yes.
Through the gift policy,
Through the
correct?
gift policy. The
Right.
gift
Yes.
policy didn't go into the murals at all. That's why we've drafted the mural policy to coincide with the gift policy.
Which is, again, why I want to make sure we reference it, so
Yep,
there's
I
less
have that in
confusion,
my
which
notes.
is good. I know.
I have a question.
Yeah.
We know that this all came about because of the application for the Black Lives Matter mural. So the applicant that applied, has this all been communicated to her and her group? And do we have any other suggestions? Because I think her reasoning was a good reason. And I think she was just trying to, say, as a community, we value Black lives. So I want to know, if we're not going to allow the Black Lives Matter mural on the streets, then what are the other suggestions?
She's contacted me about Elkenberg Park building, as well as she and I think a number of other people are interested in the north wall of the the Memorial Library.
Right here at the corner.
That's, I think, the one wall that's not planned to be changed during the renovation.
Also a private building, I would assume they could also put a mural on the side as well.
Well, the Memorial Library actually is co-owned, well, it's owned by the
Township.
library, but the city of South Haven and the South Haven Charter Township
But,
are both agencies.
I mean, just as an example, and I'm not saying they are, but DNL has the side of their building. They could then sponsor
Yes.
that. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering.
Similar to what was done on it looks like the movie theater, but it's actually Chemical Banks
Yeah.
wall.
Oh,
There was
okay.
Project Pathways mural that just went up.
Yep,
So yes,
several.
public or private buildings can put murals up, provided that it doesn't ultimately become a sign for a business, for an off-premise sign. But yes.
Then I have just one last comment about that, because I've heard a lot of people in the community say that they don't want it at Elkenberg Park. If it's at Elkenberg Park, then they don't want it there. And I like that suggestion of possibly the library if possible. So that's why I was asking about, what were the other suggestions? Because I think when you talk about bringing something to Ward 1, then you probably should be dealing with the people within Ward 1, because one individual cannot speak for the whole Ward 1.
Right, and we thought about that, and that's why we put into the steps here that they have to talk with local business association, neighbors and neighboring businesses, people who are in that area that would be, I guess, wanting to weigh in on that, would have their voice heard in part of this process.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Let's try it again. We still have a motion and a second to adopt a public mural policy. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no.
No.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item, City Council will be asked to take the following actions regarding the Overton Housing Project. First of all, we're going to receive an update from Ryan Kilpatrick of Housing Next regarding the process of the Overton Evaluation Committee, which recommended the Habitat Company LLC as the preferred developer. That'll be the first one. We don't need a motion to do this. We're going to see an update.
Hey, I'll call him right now, sir.
Perfect.
Hi, Ryan, this is Kate. I'm going to put you on the speaker. All right, Ryan, so we just got to the Overton item. The mayor is looking for you to give us an update on the progress of the Overton Evaluation Committee and the recommendation for the preferred developer.
Okay, sounds good. So as you've all seen in my memorandum, the Overton Development Review Committee spent several months working through the three complete and timely submittals that were provided to the city manager. We had three strong proposals, three good developers, all of which were high-quality, trustworthy proposals, all of which proposed projects that were relatively similar to the concept plans that Housing Next and Integrated Architecture put together about a year ago. And so in the process of reviewing each development team's proposals, the process was really focused primarily on qualifications, on developer experience, on capacity within each development team to execute the kind of project in terms of both price point and building typology. And so the committee spent a good amount of time talking with each development group, deliberating following those conversations. And at the end of the process, at the end of September, the committee made a unanimous recommendation to recommend an agreement to work with the Habitat Company. Habitat Company is a very strong team, a lot of background in both affordable and market rate housing. They've got a good group of folks that have done these kinds of projects before, that have quite a bit of experience working through community facilitation processes to problem solve, to work with multiple groups with multiple perspectives on how to solve those problems, and to bring together and synthesize an ultimate development proposal that works for the community and works for the development site and, frankly, works financially so that the project can actually get off the ground. So, with that being said, in front of you is a recommended due diligence agreement. At this stage, what we really want to do is make sure that we can spend a little bit of time working again with you, the City Council, as well as some neighborhood groups. It's clear that one of the things that needs to happen is we've really got to refine what the priorities are for the site. We had a lot of conversation with both the committee and public comment that was related to both price point as well as building typology. And so I think going forward, before actual pen gets put to paper to put together a real site plan or a concept drawing beyond what has been included in the development proposal package, we're going to want to work with your preferred developer to really define what the city council would like to see on the site. And I want to make sure that the council feels very confident in the development group that you're selecting to give you very honest feedback about what's financially possible, about what kinds of programs are out there to solve the types of problems that we want to solve for the site, and about the realities of how the various tools work in the marketplace and what needs to happen in order to accomplish our goals for both affordability and ownership, as well as building typology. So I think those are really going to be the three cornerstones of the process going forward. And so what we're recommending for you tonight is to think about adopting this due diligence agreement. Essentially what that does is it gives the development group some security in knowing that they have essentially exclusive rights to be working on this project in partnership with you before a purchase agreement gets signed. And what we want to work towards is a project proposal that works for the community and for the city council and solves for the goals and objectives of the community, but that is also financially viable. And we want that plan to be embedded in the final purchase agreement with some terms and conditions that provide for specific timelines and milestones that need to be hit, as well as final goals and objectives that you'd like to be incorporated into the plan. So all of that is to say there's still a lot of work to be done. We do not have a site plan that anyone is approving at this point. What we're asking you to do is enter into an initial preliminary agreement with the Habitat company to really begin the due diligence phase of this project and make sure that everybody is aligned about product type and price point. And once we get that alignment, then we'll really work towards a final site plan, go through the traditional planning commission process for site plan review and approval, and then seek to execute a purchase agreement from there. So I'd love to answer some questions. I think Jeff Head with the Habitat company is likely going to be calling in by phone if you've got any questions specifically for the Habitat company. I'm really excited about their proposal and their talented group of staff member and teammates that they're bringing along for this project.
All right, very good. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. And just to say again, it's a pleasure that we have you on our team to make this happen. I think you said it several times, and I appreciate you saying it over and over again, and that is that there is a lot of work to be done. I think there is that concern that we are putting ink to the agreement and the final plan, and we are nowhere near that, but we all know what we want to accomplish on the site, or we have some ideas. So I appreciate the work you've done to date, so I appreciate that. Any other council questions or comments for how we've gotten here? Joe?
I think the most important thing for all of us in this room and for people watching is the term due diligence agreement and what that really means. And what it really means is we're simply agreeing to have a Habitat be in partnership with the city. It means we open our books and we candidly talk about the project. Up until this time, they could not put money and resources into giving us a specific proposal, nor could they come into our community and talk to people up until this is signed. So once the city council agrees to use them and we go into due diligence agreements, my understanding, then and only then can we then start to share ideas and thoughts, and they can kind of open their books and tell us more. They can even bring people into our community, meet with community members, because they have a whole department, as I understood from the presentation, where they can send people in and get people's input, what they want from this whole project. But up until now, without that agreement, we can't do it. So that's just like the first step. It doesn't mean anything about how it's going to be built, what's going to be built. It just means we are now going into partnership with them. Is that about it, Kate and Mayor? And Ryan, is that about it on the due diligence?
Ryan, did you hear Joe's question?
Yeah, I did. Joe, I think you're spot on. Yes, that's exactly right. There's a lot of work to do yet. What we're asking you to do is really enter into an exclusive agreement so that the Habitat Company, we're essentially going to ask them to spend some time and money on their staff and on some drawings to really help the city to work through the kind of project that's going to make the most sense for the site and is financially viable at the end of the day. And the time that they spend on that due diligence is going to be fairly expensive, and they want to know that you're not going to go ahead and sell the property to somebody else while they're doing that work. They want some sense of security. Now, at the end of the day, you don't sign a purchase agreement until you've got a project proposal that works for everybody. So they're entering into this agreement knowing that they've got some work to do to prove themselves to the city, with the expectation that we're all going to work collegially toward a final purchase agreement and a final plan that is amenable to all parties.
Okay. We also have Jeff Head from Habitat, if you'd like to have him put through. I know he's on the other line if they have questions, if council has questions for him.
I don't have any anybody questions or?
I'm just a little nervous about the confidentiality clause and the thing. I understand it probably needs to be there, but I guess I'm okay with it. I just want everybody to realize that it does say expressly deemed confidential by the other, so one party can deem something confidential and then we can't talk about it, and I think that brings up public issues.
Okay.
That's the only concern on this agreement with me that I have.
Okay.
Any other council comments other than the dog in the background? Vital wants to talk. I don't think we've got anything else. All right. I guess we're just going to go on and let's go for the motion. How's that sound?
Okay.
All right. Thanks again, Ryan. We're going to move on to the motion. So next, we're going to consider approval of the development due diligence agreement between the City of South Haven and the Habitat Company, LLC, regarding 229 Elkenberg, subject to minor modifications requested by Habitat and acceptable to the city manager and city attorney.
What were the minor modifications?
The minor modifications are, we still have not yet heard back from the Habitat attorneys on this agreement.
Oh.
I don't think there's an update on that, or do you have one, Nick?
We've had one back and forth with the attorneys for Habitat. The confidentiality language that you mentioned was requested by Habitat, and we agreed to put that into the draft, but only with the stipulation that if anything is subject to the Freedom of Information Act, we'll obviously have to release it as required by law. And that type of language has been in other city agreements. So I incorporated their changes the best that I could. We've sent the draft back to their council and believe that they're likely to accept it as is. But just so we don't have to bring it back for reconsideration, we're asking for flexibility with minor modifications, and we can report on those if any are requested between now and when it's presented for signature.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
We do have a caller on the line, sir.
Perfect. Well, I was just going to say 637-0777. So we'll hear from one and wait for another.
Okay.
Kate, this is Ryan. Do you mind if I make a quick comment on the confidentiality?
Sure.
I think it's probably important for the council to note, I fully understand some of the reticence about the confidentiality clause. I would strongly advise the council to want to see the developer's financials on a final project, assuming that the developer is going to ask for some incentives from the city. Now, one of the things that tends to be known as somewhat of a secret sauce when it comes to development is how a particular developer puts together their capital stack. So they'll have a number of sources. They'll have costs on construction. They'll have proposed rents and cash flow analyses. And the way that they put those things together is unique to each individual development firm. And so making that information public that could be disclosed to the city attorney so that the city attorney can review whether or not the project needs the full slate of incentives that are being requested. If that information becomes public, essentially they're losing that proprietary information to the general public, and any other developer can then essentially say, aha, we understand how they do this. We've been trying to figure it out for years, and they can take that information to the bank. So it's not that there would be really much of anything other than those specific items that are really key to their business model that aren't generally, general practice issues that most developers are using on a day-to-day basis. The vast majority of information is going to be public, but the way that a developer puts together their financing tends to be pretty important and tends to be fairly unique, and they're probably going to want to keep that information confidential.
Okay, perfect. Does that help Steve a little bit, kind of?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I figured it had to be in there for some
So,
reason, I just
right.
didn't know exactly what.
That helps. Perfect. Thank you, Ryan. Thanks for that clarification.
Thank you.
All right. Was that our caller?
No, we'll
Nope.
send up the callers now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Caller, you're on with the city council. Please state your name and address, and then you'll have 5 minutes. When you finish with your comments, just state that you're done.
Okay, my name is Nancy Nat. I live at the Factory Condos. And my question to the City Council and regarding this whole project is, with this due diligence now being voted on, how are the parties, i.e. the public, like people who are going to be affected by this development, going to be informed of the entire process? I feel like we've been surprised by a lot of this as people in the neighborhood, not happy with how the situations come about, how the density issues, a lot of things that have been going on. And I just want to make sure that we continue to get informed so we're not blindsided anymore. Thank you. I'm done.
Okay. I mean, do you want to respond to the number of public meetings we've had, or?
Sure. We have had a number of public meetings with Housing Next and, of course, with the Oversight and Evaluation Committee. But anything going forward, as we look to what is the actual site plan, that's going to have to go to the Planning Commission. Rezoning of the site would have to go to the Planning Commission. All of these would be publicly noticed items. The rezoning or anything like that would have to be a publicly noticed hearing.
Okay. And I will just say, this has been our top priority for the whole year. We've had numerous discussions about housing, so hopefully, I'd like to think the community is aware this is top of mind, and this site has been top of mind for quite a while. Steve?
Yeah, I was just going to say that possibly some of the confusion has come about because we sent out a request for qualifications, and we had a committee to decide in simple terms between three groups of who was qualified, hopefully by the committee the best, to carry out what we thought the city was looking to do and develop in that site. It wasn't a request for proposals yet. It was a request for qualifications. That committee, which Joe and I were on, chose and voted unanimously for this company to come forward to be seen by the city council to take this next step. So I think that's maybe where some of the confusion came in, is it was a request for qualifications of that company to be able to do what we're asking them, what we think we might want them to do. Now we got to tell them what we want them to do.
Exactly. And to the concerns of density and whatnot, again, nothing has been decided here yet. We are still going through that process, so a lot of work to be done, to be very clear. Any
Okay.
other calls?
Yep, we'll have Phil send up the next caller.
Caller, you're on with the city council. Please state your name and address, and then you'll have 5 minutes. When you finish with your comments, just state that you're done.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Campbell. I'm at 125 Elkenberg, number 7. I also live in the factory condominiums, which is right next to the proposed Overton site. Are you there? Can you hear me?
We are. Good evening, Patrick.
Okay, I'm not going to take much of your time, but I do want to say thank you very much for developing a master plan. Having been in public service for many years, it's great to see that you have a plan and you are making every effort to follow it. So I commend you on that. Having read the plan thoroughly, I just want to remind council members of several parts of it that you have in your master plan. The first item is that you're looking to aim for the workforce population, and so teachers, nurses, firefighters, or workforce people could buy. And so my question is, why would they want to buy in a high-density complex? Because in essence, what you have is 315 people living in 4 acres, which is about 78 people per acre. And I'm not sure that they would want to live in a high-density complex. Secondly, there is a large apartment complex that exceeds the height restrictions already existing in the city. And so I'm sure as the plan goes forward, we will take a look at the height restrictions that already are there. You're putting a 3-story plus a tuck-in parking, which would make it approximately a 4-story building in the middle of a low-density neighborhood. I'm concerned about parking and flow because you have 150, 200 cars coming and going with one entrance, one exit in the concept plan onto a very small street. And lastly, the short-term rentals, when they have a holding evaluation committee, they kept talking about that in order to make a profit for the builder, they would have to have short-term rentals, and I'm not sure that people that are wanting to buy a townhouse there are going to want to have a different neighbor every week, every other week or so. I'm pleased that you're going to take a lot of public input. I think there's a lot of us that are concerned because we saw a timeline that was very, very short. And as the previous caller had indicated, we got very mixed messages along the way. Having talked to Kay the other day, Kate, and the attorney, I felt like they assured us, as did the mayor, that we will be heard as the process goes forward. So I thank you for your time and efforts.
Thank you, Patrick. We appreciate your phone call, and yes, you will be heard, we promise.
No further comments.
Okay. Anyone else out here? We're good out here. All right. Any other council comments? All right, hearing none, we have a motion and a second to approve the development due diligence agreement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. All right, we're almost there. Thanks again, Ryan. City Council will be asked to consider approval of the city manager employment agreement with Ms. Kate Hosier.
Good evening.
Good evening, Kim.
So I just wanted to bring an update here. We have been working on this for the past 4 months. As you know, we started off with a nationwide search, had 21 great qualified candidates who came through. We narrowed that down to 7. From there, we were able to narrow it down to 2 finalists, and in the end, City Council voted to do negotiations with Kate Hosier. And tonight, we are presenting to you an employment agreement. This is one that the mayor and I worked on. We negotiated with Kate on this. So we do have the employment agreement included in your packet. A couple highlights of it. The annual salary we're looking at is $104,000. Benefits would include a $6,000 annual car allowance, term life insurance coverage in the amount of $50,000, and a 6-month severance package. Beyond that, all the other benefits would be the same as our regular non-union full-time employees. And so that is the general gist of that employment contract. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Yes, sir.
A car allowance. I thought we have a city car that can be used at any time. And then my second question to that, is the car allowance pre-tax dollars or after-tax dollars?
We do have a vehicle here, but it is used very often throughout the day by our short-term rental inspectors, zoning, code enforcement. Occasionally, we have police that, what's that?
Assessing has been using it.
Assessing, so it is used frequently throughout the day, so it's not dedicated to the city manager.
And then is it pre-tax dollars or after-tax dollars? Because normally, if it's a company and they're giving you a car allowance, it's pre-tax dollars, no benefits get included in that. So is the $6,000 pre-tax or after-tax?
I'll have to double check on that.
That's a
It's
big difference.
Yeah, it's included in part of the salary, so I'll double check on that.
Taxable then.
Correct.
Should be.
Any other questions? Okay.
I've seen it enough. Very good. No one else has questions. I just need a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to approve the city manager's employment agreement with Kate Hosier.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. I guess we should allow public comment. 6370777, see as it's an item. I will just say, welcome, Kate. Congratulations. It's been a process, but we are excited to have you sitting in that chair. So
Thank you, sir.
let the fun begin.
I'll have Phil tell us when it's been 1 minute.
Perfect. And then while we're waiting for that too, we are to that point in time in the agenda. Right after this will be public comments not on the agenda, so 6370777 if you want to get in the queue to talk on an item that's not been on the agenda. Start that clock.
Mr. Mayor, while we're waiting I just wanted to go back, the last item, I just want to make sure that there was actually a motion made for item B, because I think
We missed it.
there was the intent to make a motion, but I think then discussion
Oh.
started and we didn't have a formal motion.
I think the mayor read it.
I read it. No one actually motioned it. Oh, you
So,
guys.
so we voted, I think, on what the motion was intended to be, but I think we need someone to make
All right.
a motion on it.
Would anyone care to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the development due diligence agreement between the city and the Habitat Company LLC regarding the 229 Elkenberg, subject to minor modifications requested by Habitat and acceptable to the city manager and city attorney.
Second.
All right, motion is second. Shall we vote it up again? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Still approved. Any calls on the management agreement?
No other calls, sir.
No. Give another 10 seconds on items not on the agenda.
I think you have a motion and a second on number 12, approval of the city manager contract, but I wasn't sure if you
Oh,
did
that's
the
true. We got to get
approval.
that one done, too. We're getting too far ahead of ourselves. Were there any calls on that one, though?
We haven't
No,
done this in a
no
while.
calls
Okay,
on
well, if there's
item
no
12.
calls, then we can do it. All right. So we have a motion and a second to approve the management agreement with Ms. Kate Hosier. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. 6370777. We also have some folks in the public
Here in the public.
who would like to come chat tonight, so come on up. State your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes to share with us your thoughts. Good evening, Cam.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Cam Doherty. I live at 522 Edgell Street in District 2. As a lifelong resident of South Haven, beach and pier safety remains a priority, number one, an ongoing concern for me. Some of you may recall that my friend Sean Russell and I stood before council about a year ago requesting a call to action on beach and pier safety. At that time, I shared with you some information regarding the South Haven Lifeguard Survey, which garnered over 14,000 signatures, 600 being from South Haven and immediately surrounding communities. Information on the flaws in beach warning flags as a standalone preventative measure. How to understand the effectiveness of our current system by understanding when the clock actually starts ticking for a victim, and that response time does not start with the initial dispatch of emergency personnel. as well as the multifaceted benefit that bringing back a trained and certified lifeguard program to South Haven would have for our town. Sean also shared with you his experiences as a lifeguard, as director of the program. He saw firsthand the benefits that lifeguards brought not just to beachgoers, but also to the seasonal workforce in town and to South Haven tourism as a whole. In our conclusion, we offered our support in determining whether or not lifeguards would again be a viable addition to our current beach and pier safety protocol. To the credit of our previous city manager, Sean and I were asked to participate in the creation of the South Haven Beach Safety Survey that went out to random South Haven residents. But that was it. No one else reached out to us. We were not even invited back or made aware of ahead of time of when the results from the survey would be shared. On the night of August 5th, 2019, I said even one more drowning in South Haven would be unacceptable. And then on June 16th of this year, Jasmine Patterson drowned. She was not my family. I did not even know her, but it hit me hard. I felt like I had failed her and I failed her family. Because somehow I wasn't able to push this town that I love so much hard enough to step up our beach and pier safety protocol. Sadly, the tragedies of 2020 didn't stop with Jasmine. We suffered 2 more drowning deaths, and there was an unbelievable amount of close calls this year. I have lived in South Haven for the better part of 43 years. Never in all of my time have I experienced a summer season with 3 drownings. In fact, leading up to the summer, I can only recall 3 drowning deaths off a North or South Beach during regular beach summer hours total. Things have to change, and they have to begin changing right now. We have mask mandates all over town because they may help to stem the spread of the coronavirus. We complain, but still we wear them because it may help, and everyone's life is important. Data shows that the best solution to improving beach and pier safety in South Haven is a multifaceted approach, but there is no doubt, no conflicting research, that a safety plan that includes lifeguards will save lives. Lifeguards are proven with South Haven's own data, and we have 40 years of it to go through, to be the most effective way to save lives along the lakeshore. They are an economical solution, and they allow for better utilization of other safety resources. I've been made aware that beach and pier safety proposals are in the works, but I'm here tonight to request that the discussions and timelines around those proposals be made public. I run a beach and pier safety forum on Facebook called South Haven Life. Life is an acronym for Lifeguards in Full Effect. This group has 833 active members with, yes, sir?
Got about a minute.
Okay. With half of which come from South Haven directly. This group engages in positive, solutions-focused discussion. The number one question I am asked is, what is the city doing to improve beach and pier safety? I request on behalf of all South Haven Life members and all concerned citizens that you improve transparency to actions related to beach safety currently underway, and that you make improvements to beach and pier safety protocol a number one priority. If you want to talk with me about my research or would like to chat with me about any of the experts that I have access to, I'm happy to chat at any time. Same goes for Sean Russell as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Cam. Appreciate it. And then, Kate, we've got a meeting coming up.
Yes, I'd like to get my feet under me before I start bringing those heavy-hitting topics. But we were planning on bringing some updates to the council on what we see from our current plan, the Marty Jordan plan. And I was thinking of sometime in November.
Okay. And I have asked Brandon Hins from Shays, and he's already started work with just some of our neighboring communities to look at best practice, and let's look at everything from signage to response to what are we doing on our piers, how do we keep people off, to just figure out is there any commonality among us, and then just bring that data forward. Even if we could sit down on an annual basis, whatever we can do to make it better, we're open. So as those development, as those occur, we'll keep you posted. So we agree, we're concerned. So thank you. All right. Were there any phone calls?
Yes, we do. We have another caller. Phil, can you send the other caller up?
Call
with the city council, please state your name and address, and then you'll have 5 minutes. When you complete your comment, just state to the council that you're done.
Okay, my name is Carol Sandy.
Good evening. I'm gonna ask for her address. Let me get her address and what she wants to do.
You can go ahead.
Okay, because I hear people talking right now, but maybe there's a delay. I'm from Metro Detroit, Troy, Michigan, and I've been on the call since 7 p.m. For this portion of the meeting because I am a strong supporter of lifeguards on public beaches and in South Haven, and I totally support Cameron and the others who are advocating for lifeguards and for transparency. I have the unfortunate position of having my youngest son drown in Lake Michigan, and it's just a devastating thing, and I think not being from South Haven, I hope you'll also appreciate my perspective that you are a tourist area. And as someone had made a comment earlier about visitors on piers who are more likely to drown, something to that effect. It was a quick remark. I would say with tourists and a community that is welcoming people to come and to enjoy your beaches and hotels and restaurants, that you would make the beaches as safe as possible, especially for people who may not be familiar with your waters and different flag systems and so forth. Flag systems are not sufficient. They are never meant to be a substitute for lifeguards. It's crucial to have lifeguards on beaches. You did for many years, and in the 90s, unfortunately, the DNR took them away, and the results have showed that there's an increase in drownings in Lake Michigan. It was increased this year and last year over the year before. So as a representative of victims' families who have lost loved ones in drownings, and as a tourist and a lifelong Michigander who loves our state parks and beaches, I would implore you to make your community and beaches as safe as possible and encourage people to come to your beaches. It can be a great advertisement that we have the safest beaches. We have lifeguards who are there for you. That can be a selling point over other beaches who may not have that. My goal is and hope is that all our state parks and public beaches that are being made welcome to the public with parking lots and bathrooms and so forth, that they be responsible and look after not only your own citizens, but for tourists and visitors who come to enjoy or places that you are encouraging people to come. So my motto is lifeguards save lives and money. Thank you.
Thank you for your call, and we're sorry for your loss.
We've got another caller, sir.
Okay.
Caller, you're on with the city council. Please state your name and address, and then you'll have 5 minutes. When you finish, just state that you're done.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
You can go ahead.
Oh, sounds good. Yeah, I didn't know there was somebody speaking right now, so do you want me to go ahead?
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. My name is Greg Field, and I actually live in Zeeland, Michigan, 3740 Town Line Court, and I was just calling to make some comments about South Haven possibly bringing lifeguards back to the beaches.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, sorry, I was listening to the live feed, and I believe Carol was still speaking. So, am I up?
Yeah, you'll want to turn that off or turn that down. There's about a minute delay.
Okay. Oh, that sounds good. Okay, sorry. I'm a little bit older, so technology. First of all, thank you so much for letting me speak. My name is Greg Field, and I hope you all are having a good night and a lot of interesting topics. I've been listening in since 7, and I've learned a lot about South Haven. It's a place that I love. I surf very frequently after moving here from the ocean for the past 10 years, and really enjoy the town, really enjoy the city. and I appreciate you having me on, and I hope everyone's doing well. I am actually an instructor at Michigan State University, and I am in research in water safety specifically, and me and my team have been doing water safety education research, and now we've essentially started to really explore lifeguards on the Great Lakes. I also run a nonprofit in the summer, and we see hundreds and hundreds of youth throughout the entire summer out at the Great Lakes shoreline that don't typically get to the beach, and we do a lot of water safety education and prevention work in that arena as well. I just wanted to speak really quickly into what the research says about a safe beach. And I know as a surfer and surfing in South Haven quite often the flags do not match the conditions, and we cannot rely on flags. But we can also not rely on the general public to make saves. And we even can't, because I've been a firefighter for almost 15 years in Howland Township, and we can't even rely specifically on the rescue of a response of basically our first responders, who do a wonderful job, who are absolutely amazing at what they do, and I'm one of them. But the system fails the families and the community members to come to the beach because it just doesn't happen fast enough. So at my work in Michigan State, we've been looking into research across the entire state on water safety education, and also on specifically to Great Lakes lifeguards and the potential for Great Lakes lifeguards. And I can assure you that the research confidently and soundly will tell you that lifeguards are the answer to a safer beach. There's no question. There should be no further exploration. Lifeguards, well-trained lifeguards, are the answer to a safer beach. And I have 4 kids of my own. We frequent the beach, and I'm always uneasy as a former lifeguard myself when I go out to our state parks, because there's hundreds of kids in the water. There's and our city beaches too, and thousands of people, and there's no one there to respond. The Coast Guard can't get there fast enough. Local fire, police, they cannot get there fast enough. We have to have people on scene that are able to respond and well-trained. That is the answer to a safer beach. That will save lives, and there's ample research to back that. And we've been working on that for about 6 years now and making some really good improvements at the state level. But a city like South Haven has an opportunity to be a beacon of hope for families that have lost people to the Great Lakes, but also a model for how to do Great Lakes rescue and lifeguarding very well. So I really encourage you to continue to explore the opportunity to get lifeguards back at the beach, because that is the best practice and the research backs it. So again, thank you so much for your time. I know I'm not from the area, but I love South Haven. I'm really rooting for you guys to get lifeguards back at the beach.
Thank you for calling. We appreciate it.
I think we have one more.
Caller, you're on with the city council. Please state your name and address, and then you'll have 5 minutes. When you finish, to state that you're done with your comment.
Okay. Hi, my name is Dave Benjamin. I'm from Homewood, Illinois. I'm the co-founder of the Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project. We track the drownings in the Great Lakes, and we teach Great Lakes water safety. We provide lifeguard and service training for open water surf lifeguards. We work with family and friends of drowning victims, and this is something I've been doing for 10 years. And I'm just going to kind of keep my comments short at this moment. I know you guys are working on this. One thing I wanted to mention is that if you are considering hiring lifeguards for next summer, the decision really needs to be made, before the end of this year, because you need to start recruiting, February, March, and start training possibly, late May into early June. So there is a short timeline. If you don't make this decision sooner than later, it's going to delay the hiring and training of lifeguards an additional year. So that's a huge lag time. I didn't get to hear what Greg Fields was saying because unfortunately my internet, started buffering. So I lost the feed on that. But one thing I do want to say is back in 2013, the Great Lakes Surf Rescue Project hosted a 3-day, 30-hour open water surf lifeguard certification program with the International Surf Life Saving Association and with Lifeguards Without Borders. And we had this training in Holland, Michigan, and South Haven's very own Adam DeBoer participated in this. He did outstanding. Adam DeBoer is, I believe, a detective or police officer, in South Haven. After completing this training program, he was invited to go to Huntington Beach, California for a 10-day, 100-hour open water surf lifeguard certification program, which he passed with flying colors, and they even offered him a job. But what I want to say is, why I'm bringing this up is, you have a very skilled, knowledgeable person for open water surf lifeguard training already employed in your city. And he's been there for quite some time, and to not utilize him, I'm sure he probably was utilized with the Shays training. I applaud you guys. From what I've been seeing in the Great Lakes region, you guys have one of the best response teams for the water emergencies. The only problem, you have a 3-minute response time. The only problem with that is if it takes someone 10 or 15 minutes to call 911, now it's like you're 18 minutes behind the start of the incident. So it's just, of utmost importance to start planning this now, because recruiting really does need to start in February and March. And training needs to start, end of May, right before Labor Day weekend. Or, I'm sorry, Memorial Day weekend. One of the things I wanted to add was this past Labor Day weekend. It was the Thursday before Labor Day weekend. You guys have a South Haven webcam, and there's also a Horizon broadband. I knew the conditions. I was watching the webcam. I saw 4 children, ages 10 to 14, in the water on red flag days, and they got in trouble. Luckily, 3 of them had boogie boards. I screen recorded this incident. There was a little bit of a lag time from when I started the screen recording. I knew the outcome when I started the screen recording, when I was able to go back and screen record it. And I can send you the link to this so you guys can see it. But 4 kids, ages 10 to 14, struggled in the waves and dangerous currents for over 30 minutes. If they didn't have those boogie boards, that would be 4 fatalities. You can see these children walking in the water, red flags flying behind them, out of their view if they're looking at the water. They get in the waves, they get caught in the long shore current, which pulls them parallel to the shore to the pier, and then when they get to the pier, they get in a structural current that starts pulling them away from shore. And then 2 of them got separated from the other 2. They went about 150-some yards out.
Sir, that's the end of your 5 minutes.
Okay. But I cannot stress enough the decision needs to be made sooner than later. Thank you very much for my time.
Thank you, appreciate it.
No more callers, sir.
All right, very good. City manager comments. Ms. Kate Hosier, you're up.
Well, I just want to say thank you to the city council for the opportunity of being your city manager. I think this is a very exciting opportunity. And hey, here's one for the first female city manager, so we're breaking ground here.
Here we go.
I also, thank you. I also want to remind the commission of a couple things. One, we are having an upcoming planning session coming up for coastal resiliency. Well, a couple of years ago, we brought Dick Norton and Guy Meadows in to talk about coastal resiliency and how to plan for a more resilient coastal community. We have partnered with Casco Township and South Haven Charter Township to do a joint planning exercise. We received actually 50% of the funding from Coastal Zone Management. So this is an exciting opportunity. We're going to do the kickoff on October 28th. It'll be a virtual session. We're looking to see if elected officials, appointed planning commissioners, and hopefully our Harbor Commission can participate along with the other 2 planning commissions and their elected officials. The first session would be more of a kind of get to know what we're talking about with coastal resiliency. They'll probably they will give you some homework. They do want you to watch the video of the pre-recorded presentation. But this will be an exciting 3 workshop event. Hopefully we can get something out of it that we can insert into our master plan. Secondly, I We'll be out of town starting this Friday afternoon. I'm driving my sister back here. She's moving back from Eastern Washington State, so I will be out of the office for that following week. That's all I have.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
All right. Any questions for our new city manager? All's quiet. Councilperson comments. Joe, start with you.
My only comment is I want to really thank Ryan Kilpatrick. I think he's done an excellent job leading the city right to where it's at right now with the Overton project. I know I've called him several times, including today. He's emailed me information about financing. He's emailed me about the actual definitions of affordable housing versus workforce versus missing middle, because a couple people wrote in and questioned our use of those terms, so I appreciated that. And I can't help but say this, but the caller that called in about Overton, I must tell you, I feel that the city and the council and everyone has done an excellent job with transparency. I think we have spent a lot of meetings. There was 3 of them before even the committee got together. There were 2 with the committee. We have talked about it. I think we've been very, very transparent, and I think the community has been on the committees. The community has come to the meetings. The community has been involved all along, and we're only at the point picking the developer. There'll be a whole lot more going on and more transparency, and I hope the community comes out and gives their input. That's the way we'll get the best Overton Park for everybody. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. Chris?
I want to congratulate South Haven boys varsity soccer. They're 11 or 12 and 2 now, and they're doing really well, and they got a game tomorrow in Waterville Elite. That's it.
They won the conference, and they're playing in the district final, I think, tomorrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
I always get those
They were-
backwards.
And they were ranked number 1 in the state for a number of weeks. So, yeah. So then my comments, I'd like to congratulate Kate Hosier on her new job. Glad to have you. And Travis also is accepted a new position within the city. Congratulations to Travis. But Travis is still going to oversee our elections. So we're still going to have a veteran staff member overseeing all this voting, and it'll all be done safely and efficiently and effectively. So thank you, Travis, and congratulations on your new job.
No comments.
No comment.
Very good. We have an election coming up? Oh, yeah, we do, don't we? Oh, I forgot all about it. I didn't turn on my TV today. Okay. Kate, welcome. I look forward to a lot of shorter meetings than this, and a lot of good work done on behalf of the city. We also have a home football game this Friday, the one and only 2020 COVID football game, but you can only go if you've got a magic ticket. You've got a kid in school, I mean, any number of things. So support them however you can. If you're lucky enough to have.
Also a winning record. They're 3-2.
We are winning, right, exactly, so we're ahead. So wish them well. Our thoughts are with all those, kids that are trying to make it through really just a crazy school year, all the teachers that are trying to survive this, and really everybody that's surviving this right now. I am also encouraged by Overton. And yes, we have been very public. We will continue to be public. There's all ways to go. But we need housing in this town. We just do. Missing middle, workforce, again, we've got a great, I agree, Ryan's a great guy, very encouraged. And really with that, I will just say we have lots of work to do, so thanks for coming, thanks for calling, thanks for listening. I'll seek a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody.